All right. Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon for Mexico and Brazil. For the Europeans and South Africans is I also have Ivory Coast tonight. I think it's 2 hours behind. So it's like 3 hours difference with Brazil. So anyhow, I have lots of time zones tonight. No problem. Everybody's welcome here. What can I say about Austine? There's plenty to say. I know her for almost 20 years. We met when I was learning French. I was studying in Bordeaux in France. She's a French lady, but she was also in a city that she was not born at. So for her, it was also like me getting to know new people, party, have some fun, and also study. That's how we met. And something very particular happens as well. I was just reminding her of that. So we met in 2005, and then in 2009, as you know, I was born in Brazil. I ended up marrying a Dutchman, and we are traveling around to Slovakia, Bratislava, in the middle of nowhere, a very small country. And then I met Austine. Can you imagine that? How small can the world be? So that's what happened. So we saw each other for the last time, 2009. So we kept in touch via Facebook, but not constantly. I knew she got married and I knew she had children, but we are just trying to catch up again now. So I already told you guys lots about her, but I'd like her to introduce herself as well. And then we can start with the questions, all right? Thank you, Asim, for being here.
Thank you, Simon, for inviting me. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you.
Hello.
As Simon said, I'm French, but I don't really know where I'm from anymore because I've been living outside of my home country for over 20 years. I'm mostly from the south of France, I guess. This is where I spent most of my time when I was there. But that was a long time ago, and now I've been living in Mexico for 10 years. Before that, I was in Colombia. Before that, I was in New York. So it's been quite some traveling. And I am married to a Colombian. So we have an international family with 2 kids, age 8 and 10. So that's about me. So I'm happy to answer any question you may have.
All right, there was already a lot to digest because I don't know if they're gonna be interested in Mexico or the other countries. Guys, just raise your hands and let's start with this. All right, Nikki, please go ahead.
What was so you say you've been to a lot of places. What was the best experience? What place would you say was the best place that you visited?
That's a hard question. I think it depends on the specific period in my life. Like I would say
Yeah.
for me, New York, like living in New York as a single person, no husband, no kids was amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
I spent 5 years there and just like partying all the time and interesting work. I was working for the United Nations, so it was really an interesting experience. So I would choose that one, but I would not come back today with 2 kids.
Yeah.
So yeah, it kind of depends. But New York was a great experience. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool.
Anyone else? All right, Richard. Oh my gosh, South Africans.
South Africa, yeah. Nikki, hi, Richard, South Africa. South Africans have always got questions. I'd love to know about your life in Mexico as a young lady growing up, and which part of Mexico, and currently what's happening in Mexico now.
Yeah, so I've always been based in Mexico City. Yeah, it's a very interesting country and especially city to live in. It's very, I encourage all of you actually to come and visit. Like it's very rich culturally. There's so much history, so much art like going on in Mexico City. The Mexican people are very welcoming, and the weather is really nice, especially coming from Bogota. The weather is really awful. Coming to Mexico City made a huge difference. It's sunny. I mean, right now it's the rainy season, but usually it's sunny. Yeah, so what was the question again?
The reason why I asked is that because myself and Stefania worked on cruise liners, and Mexico is one of our main ports. Let's put it that way. And that's why I ask. And Mexico City, yeah, was usually always one of the vibey places, but that's what brought me to that question.
Yeah, but I also traveled quite a lot in Mexico. Mexico has so much, for everyone's tastes. I mean, you have desert, you have beaches, both the Atlantic and the Pacific, and there are many Mexicos in the same countries. Actually, I mean, the Mexico from the south is very indigenous, traditional. For instance, a lot of forest. In the north, it's more like desert. And it's very influenced by the United States. So it's a complete different reality from one part of the country to another. So that's why I say you can find anything you want in Mexico.
Oh, his mic is off. All right. So anyone else with questions, guys?
Yes, but I don't know how I have to put a hand on it. So
Okay, but you're on. Just go ahead.
Hey, you say you were married with a Colombian. Why did you choose to go to live in Mexico? Or did you meet him in Mexico?
We actually met in New York.
Okay.
So we're both living there. I mean, he was living in Philadelphia, I was living in New York. And we met because through like common friend that we had. And then we decided after a while, because the commute between Philadelphia and New York was a bit exhausting after a while. So we decided to move to Colombia, mostly because for my work. Basically, I worked in poverty reduction. And in Manhattan, you don't see many poor people. So after a while, I said, I really need to, be faced with the reality and really meet with poor people to get, a bit of a reality check. So that's why I was the one, not him, wanting to move to Colombia. So we did move to Colombia for 3 years. And then he got transferred from his company from Bogota to Mexico. That's how we ended up here.
All right, that was a good question, Valérie. And also, I'm sure everybody was wondering about that. Like always when it's a mixed couple, everybody wants to know, like, well, how do you guys meet? How can you meet? How can you keep up the relationship? And how long have you been married? Can you please tell us more about that? I mean, culture differences, which language do you speak together with the children, at school, at home? Just please tell us a little bit about that.
So we've been married for 14 years, and it's very complex. Bicultural marriages in general are complex. First, because there are many cultural differences between the two countries, the two continents even, but also the language barrier. He doesn't speak French. So our common language is Spanish. It has always been Spanish. Hello. But with the kids, it's complicated because I decided to speak French with them from the very beginning, since they were born. So I continue speaking French to them. They reply in French to me. But when my husband is around, then they switch back to Spanish, so he can understand. So family dinners are a bit complex because I speak French to the kids. They reply, my husband has no idea what's happening and what we're talking about. So sometimes, somebody, either me or my children, we feel sorry for him. So we translate back to him what we just said. But somehow it works. It became fluid because we're used to that dynamic. But it's complicated.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Why did you choose to take a languages which was common to the both of you?
What do you mean?
Yeah, I mean, at my place, we choose to do English.
Oh,
And
because it
children are
was
speaking. I speak French with the
mm.
children, and Netherlands and English is the common language.
Yeah, the thing is that even though we met in New York, so we both spoke English, right? As a French person, maybe you're an exception, but usually French people, we don't like speaking English. We're not particularly good at it.
I'm used to it.
And so I don't particularly like speaking English, and my Spanish is much better. My Spanish has become my first language, really. So it was more natural to speak in Spanish. But what I really did want to do is speak in Spanish with my children, even though I could, because my Spanish is perfect. I was afraid that they would lose the connections with France, especially since we live abroad. So even though for me it was not natural to speak in French with them, because I had already been in Latin America for 10 years, my first language had become Spanish, I forced myself to speak in French with them. And now it has become natural. But that's why, English, it wouldn't feel natural at all. I prefer, to have this dual language, Spanish with my husband, French with my kids. It works better that way.
Yeah.
All right. Tally, please go ahead with your question.
Thank you. I'm a mother too. I have a 1 year and half years old daughter. And how do you work with two languages? Because I speak Portuguese, of course, my natural language, and I'm speaking English and I'm fluent. So, and now I'm teaching my daughter to speak English too. She speaks some words because she's a little girl, and I'm trying to teach her to understand what I say. How do you work with it? What's the strategy? And you and a French mother with a different country, with a husband to another language and an English. How do you feel like this?
Yeah, I mean, first, the school choice is very important. Like the school you would choose for your children when they grow up. If you put them in a Portuguese speaking school or American or French, it will make a big difference in terms of like the kind of language they will really feel confident about. So for me, it was the French school. I told my husband there's no discussion whatsoever. I mean, we're abroad, so I picked that one. So that helped a lot. At the beginning, we wanted to also speak to them. I mean, my husband mostly wanted to speak to them in English so they could be trilingual and really have the three languages from the beginning. But we abandoned that idea. One reason is that it didn't really feel natural to speak in English to them, even though we could. It was like, it was not natural. And we were a bit afraid because I read some stuff about that, and I spoke to bilingual families, and the risk is that if you put too many languages for them, it may be a bit complicated. And I have been advised that it's much better, especially for them, to stick to two languages, to the languages that are spoken at home. If there are three languages spoken at home, that's fine. But if there are only two, so, and it's very important for the mother, that's what I've read, right? To only speak one language to them in order not to confuse them. So that's why we abandoned English. I mean, now that they are a bit older, now they're taking classes and they're picking it up quickly. But yeah, and I also recommend, that's also another thing I read, is that they learn how to read and write in their mother tongue. That's also something I've been recommended. It doesn't mean they cannot later, learn another language. So we've tried something have been natural. Another thing we've tried to, hear some recommendation and do it, the way we thought would be better for them. Yeah, but I think there is no one way to do it. Yeah, no, but yeah, good luck with your daughters.
The way is the feeling.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
But good advices. I like it. Thank you.
Well, I'll tell you, it was a great question, and I think Austine nailed. Like it's very personal. He's here also with children, bilingual or two different countries. Richard is in South Africa, but it's still they have another language in South Africa as well. So he has to choose. I'm going to teach my children my language, or I am Brazilian with a Dutch. There's also 2 or 3 languages involved. That is not right or wrong. And also, like same as with Austine and Valerie, we all and you, we have all 2 children, and we know that they are completely different. So even if we try, it might not work out for both of them. You know what I mean? So you just have to go with the flow and then see what they want as well. So just wait, and you'll see that's the best way to do it is going to be your way and their ways as well. All right.
Yeah,
Okay.
and there's also something funny, sorry, is what my children speak between them, because they're completely, bilingual. And I don't know how it is for you kids, Simone or Valerie, but they have their own dialect. So
Oh,
they mix the 2 languages. Like in the same sentence, they'll put, one word
Yeah.
in French, the verb in Spanish, and very quickly, like the first word that will come to their head, whatever the language, and they form their own dialect. That's how they speak between them. And yeah, so that's funny.
That's what we are doing at home also.
Okay.
All of us.
amazing. That's cool,
It
guys.
just takes the word which is most easier to say at this moment.
Yes.
English, French, of Netherlands. Yeah.
All right. Jean, you'd like to ask a question? Can you please turn your mic on and then go ahead, please? Are you going to type?
Okay,
Oh,
okay,
yes.
okay. I would like to ask this question to Austin. How many languages do you speak? How many languages do you speak?
So right now, I only speak 3 languages, Spanish, French, and English, but I used to speak Czech because I lived in Czech Republic. I spoke Italian a bit because I lived a year in Italy, and I spoke Portuguese at some point because I learned from my work. But all those 3 past languages, like Czech, Italian, and Portuguese, because I haven't really had the opportunity to practice them, I pretty much forgot.
Okay, one question. How do you manage to speak all of these languages? How do you manage? Because you live in Mexico. How do you manage?
Well, the key is to practice. So as long as you practice those languages, that's fine. But sometimes it's complicated, especially at work. I have never worked in France. So sometimes it may happen I have a work meeting with someone in France, and it's very hard for me to find the words, the technical words. I struggle a lot. And I usually, the sentence is French, but I put a lot of words in English and Spanish in between when I can't find the right words. So yeah, and even when I had to write a very formal email in French, what I do is that I write it in Word. So, the autocorrect option will highlight in red when there are mistakes. That way I can correct and I copy and paste into the email.
Fake French. Well, I go through
One
the
question.
same because I've never worked in
One question.
Brazil. Oh, sorry, John, go ahead.
One question. My question is, what is your first language, your second language? First language, second language.
Well, my first one is French. But after spending 10 years in Latin America before I had kids, I can say it switched. My first language became Spanish. I was thinking, dreaming in Spanish. That was more natural to me. And after my kids were born, When I force myself to speak French to them, then I can say today I would say my first language is back to French, even though I live in Mexico. But the two are very, similar.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, thanks, Joe. That was great questions. Renato, please.
Hi, Austine. Nice to meet you. Sorry for my delay. And well, I think I have a curiosity about Mexico because I can say that I have been in Mexico before because I visited Cancun 12 years ago. I think that Cancun is not Mexico. I think that Cancun is something like United States or something like that. Okay, so I want to visit Mexico. What city do you suggest? What place do you suggest to visit besides Mexico City?
So definitely not Cancun, as you said. Cancun is not really Mexico. There are more Americans, I think, Canadians than Mexican in Cancun. Plus, the beaches are, not very nice anymore because of climate change. There is this algae. I don't know if this brown algae called sargasso that is coming to the beaches all year long. It's very toxic. It smells really bad. You cannot get into the water. So now Mexicans don't go to Cancun anymore when they want to go to the beach. Actually, we go to the Pacific coast to avoid that. But that's a parenthesis. So you know. Other places to visit. So Mexico City has a lot if you don't mind the pollution. Otherwise, the south, Oaxaca and Chiapas, the most beautiful states to visit. They're very natural. A lot of forest, indigenous people, ruins. You also have beaches there. And you will find almost no Americans or Canadians there. I mean, backpackers you may, but not, the typical, profile that will go to Cancun. So I would really recommend that region. And otherwise, all the Pacific side, you have South California. I mean, if you go, so Baja California, it's called. I'm not sure in English. That's where the main cities are Los Cabos, La Paz, and there you can see whales. It's famous for the whales.
Yeah,
And
it must be a beautiful place, I think so.
Yeah.
I'm looking here in my map, and I think that must be a beautiful place too. Yeah.
Acapulco
And,
on the Pacific coast used to be a very touristy destination, but not
Yeah.
anymore. It has been replaced really with Cancun, and Acapulco now is it's quite dangerous. So people don't go there anymore.
Yeah. And then another curiosity, I think that I'd like to know about the standard of life. And I think that I don't know if you get your money in dollar or you max in pesos in Mexican currency. But I think that how is the pardon or the standard of life in Mexico? Are the things so expensive like New York? Because I was comparing the price of the hotels in Mexico and in New York by coincidence, and I saw that the price in New York are really expensive. Yeah, you pay something like $300 for an average hotel in New York, and so it's very difficult because New York doesn't allow to have Airbnb there. So one of the options that I have to go to North America next year is going to Mexico. But in terms of standard of life, how is the difference between the currency of these two countries?
Yeah, so
United
Mexico
States and
is,
Mexico.
it's much less expensive, of course, than the US. Although in the last few years, prices have gone up quite a lot. And I mean, Mexico, you can find anything. Like you have very wealthy people who live a very, high standards of living. And you can, if you go to the nicest restaurants in Mexico City, it will be the same price probably as in New York. No, it can be quite expensive. But you could also go to a very local, a restaurant, eat some taco, it will be very cheap. I mean, and you have everything in between as well. So there is a lot of inequality in Mexico. So you have really, things that are really high-end, expensive. For instance, all the health care system in Mexico is as good as the one in Europe or the United States, but it's extremely expensive. Like most of the population cannot afford it. But if you can, I mean, great for you, right? You will have top quality, but you also have, you know, very low-end services and quality. So yeah, it really it can adapt to any purchasing power you may have.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Aro.
Great. All right. Richard, please.
Austine, thanks for that. Yeah, my question is relates to your career or your job. You mentioned something about working with the poor. Is it social work? I'm interested to know, especially coming from South Africa, because we also have a very large poverty line in this country as well.
Yeah, well, for 15 years, I worked mostly on extreme poverty reduction in rural areas in Latin America. So with the UN and NGOs, but working also with the government to try to improve public policies and make sure the extreme poor, you know, were included somehow. So that's why it was my expertise. And about 2-3 years ago, I made a career shift. And now I'm much more focused on climate change and sustainability, because I realized all the progress we would make in terms of poverty reduction would be totally eliminated by climate change, basically. And I could see it in the field. The poor people are the ones that will suffer the most from natural disasters. So I really wanted to, you know, tackling that, you know, issue that for me is the number one priority. So that's why now I'm working more on climate change. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
Sure. Oh, you're on mute. Come on.
Oh, sorry about that. Is it really true that your name is Fidel Castro? Castro, are you there? You have a question? I know him as Fidel, right? And he comes here with his Castro name. So I was just wondering, is it really true, Fidel Castro?
No, Castro is a nickname. My real name is Fidel.
All right.
Yeah, I heard Austine actually giving some tips about communicating with her children, and I just thought to chip in something, especially when it comes to speaking different languages to children. To the best of my knowledge, I know that you could speak 6 different languages to a child, and that child will perfectly grow up knowing the 6. If it is no matter, yeah. So because I'm a bit like Simone, I'm here in Belgium, but I'm a Cameroonian by origin, and my kids here speak our local dialect. That's why we speak at home.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they speak English. We also speak English at home. And they speak Dutch, which is Netherlands here. So, and through my studies, because I did linguistics in school, I know that when a child between the age of 0 and 6, they could learn 6 different languages at the same time.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So what you do is speak what you know just from birth. Like my own, we spoke to them from birth, our mother tongue, the dialect, and they can speak it perfectly.
Wow.
So and they can switch if they're in school. If I pick them from school, we speak Dutch, and immediately we enter the house, they switch.
That's
They just switch.
amazing.
Yeah. So, but I know maybe it's different for other people, but generally children can learn a lot of languages at the same time. Because a lot of people who write books or give comments online or put things on Google from personal experience. And at certain times, some of those information are maybe 50% correct. and at times not correct because they take their personal experience and try to advise people. But with studies, it shows that a normal child will be able to speak 6 languages at the same time between the age of 0 and 6.
Yeah, that's
Thank
very
you.
interesting. Yeah, as Simon said, thanks for that. There is no, one single, opinion about how many language, kids should speak. So I think, yeah, it's totally valid. Like in our case also, because of the pandemic, our oldest son started stuttering when he was at that time, I think 5 or 6 years old. And one possible reason we were given, but there could be others, we're never sure, right? Is that maybe the fact there are too many languages around him could, explain. So we were recommended to, like, for instance, that's when we abandoned English at some point. So he can only have 2. So and now it's much better. He's over it. But I think it also depends, how the kids react with like so many languages around. Some kids will be totally fine with like 6 languages at the same time. Others may not. Yeah, I don't think there is one way to do it. Yeah, but thanks for your testimony.
All right. Pilar, do you have a question? Because we have lots of people waiting. Do you have a question still? Oh. All right, Aura, please go ahead. And so glad you're here. You made it. All right.
Thank you. I just wanted to, wait, no, I don't know. Okay, no. I forgot my question. That's what I did. I forgot my question.
You're gonna ask about crime. Just go ahead and ask a question about crime.
No. I'll leave it. I know I did every time. I'm gonna let somebody else do it that wants to steal it from me. No, I don't know. He stole my question. I can't say anything.
You're telling me for half an hour. I want to come in. I have lots of questions. And now?
I know.
All right. Nikki, please take over. Nikki, are you there? By the way, guys, they are a couple. So that's why she's so nervous, because her boy is here. All right, Nikki, take over. Ask your question.
So I'm going to go ahead and ask Aura's question for her. So what is the crime rate in Mexico? Because here in South Africa, it's very, I'd say it's gone up a lot. I think Richard can agree with that. The crime rate has gone up a lot in South Africa. What's it like in Mexico?
So I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's very high. But it's very specific to certain parts of the country and to certain, unfortunately, kind of level of income. Or like wealthy people tend to live in a bubble, so they're not really affected by the crime that's around, right? And the most vulnerable people are the ones that take, who take public transportation. They are the one most affected by common criminality, for instance, here in Mexico City. And otherwise, if you happen to live in a region controlled by the narcos, basically the drug gangs, you can really feel the criminality, in your daily life, which is not the case, luckily for us. But it's all over the country, but most of it, I mean, there are 2 types of crime. There is common criminality, people who just, come up with a gun, maybe, and to steal whatever you have. And then there is the constant war between the different narco groups, and then they would just kill each other. It could be in the street, and if you happen to be around, that's bad for you. But otherwise, they won't get, they won't target like regular people. It did happen. It was a few years ago. It was very impressive. In Mexico City, in the middle of the afternoon, in one of the most famous avenue. There was the Minister of Interior, basically, I'm not sure in English what it's called, but an important figure from the government. He was with his car, it's a special car that you can, get a bullet into it. And it has one car behind, one in front, just regular security. And there is a gang with like so many guns, really heavy equipment. And they just, they shot at him. But it was really in the middle of the afternoon, in one of the supposedly nicest neighborhoods in Mexico City. So that was, the violence could get you at any time, anywhere, but usually it's targeted at certain places. Yeah.
Wow. You nailed. You really know a lot about that. All right, Adenilso, he's awake and he's gonna have a question. I'm not gonna guess. Go ahead, ask your question.
Okay, you said that you lived also in Colombia. So tell us, which one is the most dangerous place to live, like in Mexico or Colombia? Because Colombia also is not a peaceful country to live in, all right?
Yes, I would say Bogota, it's easier to compare the cities. Bogota is more dangerous than Mexico City for sure. In Bogota, you don't take out your cell phone in the street ever. Whatever neighborhood you are in, if you're a nice neighborhood or not, you never answer your phone. That's a first rule of thumb that you learn when you're there. I've been in 3 years in Colombia. I've been stolen several times. Here in Mexico, I've been living for 10 years, and luckily nothing has happened so far. So Bogota is more dangerous, especially because of all the migration from Venezuela. Unfortunately, like millions of people flew from Venezuela to Colombia, and that's when the insecurity increased.
Yeah, as a comparison, you said that in Mexico, they don't target like civilians because they are more related between gangs, but in Bogota is totally different. Like even civilians are targeted by these criminals,
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, it's really good. Austine, let's share your place. Which city do you live in? Mexico City, right?
Yes.
Mexico City. So I'm gonna
Mexico City.
I'm gonna share the map so you can show us Mexico City and also some known places to visit in case of you were willing
that's
to
very
go
useful.
there.
I mentioned a few cities, but if you have no idea where they are in the map, it can be a bit difficult.
And also some less known places also that you would recommend us to visit, Let me share.
What is dangerous in Mexico now? I'm thinking now you're pulling out the map. It's for instance, you don't drive at night. That's not the rule of thumb in Mexico. That's so there you just have to learn, the few tips to make sure you're going to be okay. You don't take public transportation and this kind of thing.
It sounds like South Africa.
So that's the city center. That's the
main square.
Main square. It's called
It's
Zocalo.
a cathedral. It's a cathedral.
Yes. And
the main cathedral. Catholic.
Yes. That's where the government and the president lives.
And I'm seeing the flag, the Mexican flag. And how about the patriotism of Mexican people? They are like as patriots like American people or not? They are not so patriots.
Yes, they are. Yeah, pretty much.
And I see another church here. The predominant religion in Mexico is Catholicism.
Yes, Catholicism, exactly. Yeah.
How about this statue?
So that's the Independence Angel in Mexico City's most famous avenue. It's called Reforma. And it's golden, it's very nice.
This is another image.
Yeah, exactly. That's the same avenue.
Do you know all this place, Austine?
Yes, I
do you know
yeah.
all the main points and the main tourist attractions in Mexico City?
Yes.
When you moved to Mexico, you moved first to Mexico City, or did you live in other cities?
No, only Mexico City. I did live, actually, I studied a year in Monterrey in the north.
Oh, let's share Monterrey.
When I was a student.
Monterrey.
With 2 hours or yeah, Nuevo León. Yeah.
Nuevo León. Let's show the place. For how far, I mean, is from Mexico City?
Oh, if you were to drive, like, I don't know, 10 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, yeah. I mean, Mexico is it's huge. So every time you want to go somewhere, yeah, you have to drive a lot or just take a flight. Like Acapulco is the nearest beach from Mexico City. It's a 5 to 6 hours drive.
Acapulco.
Richard, we've been there. Were you there as well? Yes, right?
Yeah, remember that lovely restaurant we went to where they carry you around in the chair at the
Yeah.
waterfall? Yeah.
We went, I think that we were there 3 times, crossing with the Panama Canal.
There, and of course Cozumel. Cozumel was our main port. I mean, with
Cozumel and
Senor Frogs.
Mazatlan.
Yeah, and
Mazatlan.
Senor Frogs. We all remember. I can't say remember Senor Frogs because we left there, no one could remember anything.
But if you come and visit Mexico City, don't come in September. That's the earthquake season. Even though scientists say there is no such thing as the earthquake season because it's not like hurricane season. You know, earthquake can happen anytime, and you can ask any people in Mexico, you know, when is the earthquake season? They will tell you it's September. So there is no scientific evidence, but when you live in Mexico, you know, September is not the best month to be.
How about volcanoes? There are a lot of volcanoes in Mexico.
There are a lot of volcanoes, yeah.
Which area?
Is nice.
Which
if
area?
You like around Mexico City. Around Mexico City,
really?
you already have like 3 or 4 volcanoes. Yeah. So some are extinct, so you can get inside. It's really nice if you don't mind the altitude. Because it's pretty high up. I mean, Mexico City is 2,600 meters above sea level, so it's already quite high. And if you go to the volcano, it's like 4,000 meters. So there is 2 or 3 extinct around, and there is one active, very active. We can see almost like every month, you can see fumes. And
do you know their names?
Yes. So one is Nevado del Toluca.
Nevado del Toluca.
Yeah.
Let me find some images here. Let me share. Oh, beautiful.
So this one is extinct, so you can go inside. That's the photo I shared with you, Simone.
Yeah. I asked Simone about this place. Beautiful place, really beautiful.
You see, Adenise, so sometimes you have to be a little bit patient.
Yeah, I got the place. Yeah.
It gets actually, there is snow during winter.
Activities, and which one is more active now?
So Popocatépetl.
I don't know.
Popo.
Popo. Okay, I found it.
That is not Spanish.
Wow.
Oh, it's a mixed with Nahuatl. Nahuatl is an indigenous language. So this one is very active. You can
Did you ever see an eruption of a volcano, like from?
Well, when there is not so much pollution, so that maybe one day a year. From where I live, I can see it. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, guys, sorry to interrupt, but we have to move on because we still have some people who'd like to ask some questions. Isaac, go ahead and welcome. It's your first time here. I hope you feel
Yes, first time here, you guys.
Okay. Go ahead.
You've mentioned that you're currently working with the climate change agenda, right? So I'd like to ask you, according to your point of view today, what are the main challenges that we as society in general, as a global society, and as an American society as well, considering the American continent, what are the main challenges that we're facing right now?
Regarding climate change, we have to completely change our way of life. So from what we consume, how we consume stuff, where we and how we travel, we have to rethink everything. Basically, and it's really we need action from not only the government but companies, individuals. We all need to do something about it, and we can, but we have to completely rethink how we're living. It doesn't necessarily mean downgrading, but changing our ways of life. That's the only way we can really tackle seriously climate change and not suffer from the consequences down the road. And if you're interested in that, there is a very interesting and famous workshop. It's called the Climate Fresque. It was actually born in France. And basically in 3 hours, they tell you everything you need to know about climate change in a very didactic way. It's fun. It's a kind of a game with like cards based on collective intelligence. And it has already trained more than 1 million people. And you don't need any knowledge whatsoever about climate change. And that workshop explains the causal relationship between one phenomenon and another, and what will happen if we don't do anything. And I highly recommend it. It's called Climate Fresque.
Wow, that was a great
Nice.
question
Thanks for
and an
sharing.
amazing answer. Thank you. Aura, now you have to have a good question, girl.
I have a better question. I'm sorry, my boyfriend stole my question. I was gonna ask, it's going back to the crime rate because I'm gonna do it anyway. But basically, I was just gonna ask, so you said that the crime rate is, because I heard you say that it's better where you live and the area where you live. Would you still like allow your children to walk outside by themselves, or is it too dangerous for that? Like, can you explain the crime rate in your area that you live?
Yeah, in some neighborhoods, yeah, I mean, they could walk alone when they're like 16, maybe. Uh, but yeah, usually it's not something I would probably let my kids do. I wouldn't feel like too cool about that. But there are some, I mean, if you want to visit, there's some neighborhoods that are totally fine for adults, like nothing will happen. So feel free when you want to come and visit to contact me. I will tell you where to stay. So usually it's not in the city center, in the historical center. That's the place to avoid. But there are other neighborhoods that are very nice where, you know, the crime rates are really low. So yeah, for adults, there is no problem, but I would not necessarily let my kids walk around alone.
Just to continue with that, Austine, do you take them to school by car, or they come pick them up with the school bus?
Yeah, I live
How
pretty
does it
far.
work?
I live pretty far from school, so they are picked up by school transportation. Yeah, and the neighborhood where I live, you can't really walk at all. Not because it's necessarily dangerous, but it's more like American style neighborhood, so you have to take your car for everything. It's very different from another neighborhood where it's more like European style where you can walk. But yeah, they take the school bus.
All
Actually,
right.
most people, most children in Mexico City take the school bus. In some schools, it's even mandatory.
No.
Yeah, because we just have so many cars in the street. That's why.
All right. Okay, Renato.
Austine, I think I'm going to make a question that as our lunchtime is over, like me here on the on yours. So I think that I can do this question. I remember when I was in Mexico, I asked for food, and the waiter asked me, "Do you want your food hot or cold?" I said, "Oh, come on, I want my food hot." So he put a lot of pepper, a lot of chili pepper in my food. I didn't waste to eat all the food, okay? So I think that I just asked for a taco. Taco is the common food for us Brazilian that you know about Mexico. And but how about food? How do you deal with the dressing of Mexican food?
Yeah,
What's your
it's
preference?
very challenging. It's very spicy. I've been here for 10 years and I have not been able to adapt to the spicy food. When my kid was 2 years old, he was eating more spicy than I was. So and now I use in restaurant, I used to ask, is it spicy when I order something? Never ask that question. They would always say no, always. So, and of course they would say no. They would bring in the plate. I could not even eat it because for them it's not spicy. It's very relative. This spice thing is not a natural statement. It's so now I always ask, does the dish has chili in it? So that's a very neutral question. It's a yes or no. So now I know how to ask the question. If they say yes, I will just order something else.
Yeah, sure. Okay, thanks.
All right. Anyone else? We still have like 5 minutes. Okay, Austine, can you please tell us, back in the days, everybody was using DF for Mexico City, but now it's like it's not allowed anymore. Can you explain us that?
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
used to be. So Mexico
for
is,
people who
yeah.
don't know, can you tell us a little bit about that?
So Mexico City used to be a federal district. So Distrito Federal. So the acronym was DF. And a few years ago, it became a state. Like any other state in the country, it's a federal country. So that's why it has changed its name. We're not supposed to use DF anymore. And now it's called Ciudad de Mexico. So Mexico City, with the acronym is CDMX. So the name is because the name changed because it went from district to states. So with the governor.
All right.
Austine, I just want to ask before we leave, and I'm sure Simone will stick me in this. The Beetle in Acapulco as the taxis are the craziest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. Are they still operating? Would you know?
Yes, yeah. You can still see some. Not as many, but yeah, they're still there.
Okay.
I mean, there were before the hurricane hit Acapulco last year, destroyed pretty much everything. So because these beetles were already quite old, I'm not sure they survived the hurricane last year. But before the hurricane, they were still there.
I just want to tell everybody briefly that it's the best ride you'll ever get in a taxi anywhere in the world. It's the quickest and the most dangerous is a Beetle ride in Acapulco.
Yeah, actually in Mexico, that's another rule of thumb. You don't take taxis.
I think it's not clear for everyone. Adenil, so did you get that, or can you please share it so people can know exactly what they're talking? Or we are talking.
It's a type of car that's very traditional.
Yeah. So just share.
Please say the name again. I didn't get it.
It's a Beetle, a VW Beetle.
Okay, Beetle. We have here in Brazil. Yeah, we have here in Brazil. Yeah, it's really famous.
But I think that for the Africans, it's not that clear. Can you please share?
Yeah, I'm gonna share.
Okay.
This is the Beetle.
So, Richard, please say that again. It's lower so everybody can understand.
Definitely Cameroon would know the VW Beetle as well. They're all over South Africa because we were German known country as well. There's a lot of them, yeah, still. But the way they utilize in Acapulco as taxis was amazing to me, and how quickly you could get around for $2 in a Beetle.
All right, I think that's clear now. So let's see some pictures of red caps. All right.
Which color they are in Acapulco?
Green and white.
Oh, green.
Right.
It's like this one here. This one.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's how they are in Mexico City, I guess. In Acapulco should be the same.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, Ademilson. All right, Aura, your question. Oh, she's mute. Aura, you.
Sorry,
Aura.
upside down. So I just wanted to ask really, really quickly. Are you happy with the schooling in Mexico City or where your children go to school? Like,
yeah, if you can afford private schools are really good. Yeah, so there are the French school is really good. You have many others. Pretty much all the private schools are bilingual. So they will learn, it's actually all in English because for Mexican it's very important, for kids to really master English because of the proximity with the United States. So that's why all private schools are bilingual and they are very good. So, as I said before, with the healthcare system, as long as you can afford, private school, private healthcare, like quality is excellent. Yeah.
So you'd say it's one of the best cities in the world to live if you have a very good income.
Exactly. And if you don't mind pollution and earthquakes. I think those are the two major drawbacks of Mexico
And volcanoes. Active volcanoes.
Yeah, but you'll be safe. And you can prepare. Earthquakes you cannot prepare.
I was trying to sell Mexico City for her, but after that, no, I'm not moving to Mexico City. Thank you very much. Okay, guys, with this time, we're gonna close down this session. It's been amazing. I mean, the only thing I can say, like, it was very interesting for most of you, I'm sure. Like when it comes to languages, you say, okay, I'm French born, and then I switched to Spanish, and because of the children and everything, I went back to French. But your English, it's really advanced. Like the way you use your words, your vocabulary, it's amazing, really, really, really. So I don't know for many of you, but she's a truly trilingual person, and your English is pretty much the same level as your Spanish and as your French. So
thank you.
It was really nice seeing you again and catching up. Because of these questions, I got to see other parts of you that I didn't know. So I thank you all for being so acquisitive with your questions. And I see you on Friday. We're going to have a postcast from Australia. So you all have a great evening. And thank you again for being here, right?
But thank you all for your interest and your questions. And if you want to come and visit Mexico anytime, feel free to contact me. Simon will give you my contact details if you happen to want to come and visit, and I'll be happy to show you around or give you some tips.
Thank you.
That's
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye-bye,
Austine.
guys.
Hey, thank you
Good
very
night.
much, Austine.
Bye.
See you. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye bye, guys.
Bye.
Have a
Bye-bye,
great
guys.
week ahead. See ya.
bye.
All of you.